me, it's the one old Dolphins welcoming you to Starfleet Universe on call. And tonight, well, we've got Doug. Hey, Doug.
Hello.
And we have Gary.
Hi.
Hey, Gary.
Oh,
How y'all doing?
I'm here.
That's
So
you're alive. That's
that,
that, that's a good thing. You know, I don't need you in the hospital again. That-
funny you should mention that, but yes.
Come on, the last time I
No.
saw you in real life, we were talking in the hospital.
Yeah. Yep. That was Gamers of Winter,
Yes,
as I
it was.
recall.
Yes, it was. And I remember the
Mr.
snow.
Gallbladder said, "Hey, I'm going to be super annoying. It's time for me to go."
Yep.
What better time than a couple days before the Gamers of Winter event?
Oh yeah. Oh, I remember the drive back from that too. Because it started to snow, and since the hospital was far enough away from any of the major roads, you know, you had to go through this neighborhood, and there was absolutely no salt laid down, nothing. So I'm laying on this I'm driving on this little dusting of snow, terrified that I'm just gonna slide off the side of the road, because I'm not sure what the road is actually like. And then I get on the highway. It's like, okay, I get back to Game of the Winter. Stayed there for just a tiny bit of time, and went, okay, I'm leaving now because I want to get home before it really starts to get dark. Because when it starts to get dark and it snows, it's not like other times when it gets slippery and so forth. You can't see squat. So if, let's say, a deer, which has where the roads I travel to get home, they have a tendency. I've not seen any deer since all the travels I've done. Actually, I've seen very few. I can't say I haven't seen any, but I still. That's not something you want to take a chance of, because if the deer comes out, and you can't really hit the brakes very hard and of course, a deer's a deer. It's a heavy creature, so you can just mess up your whole front end of your car that way real fast. So I had to leave a little early. And
Don't forget all the nice hills to drive through here.
yeah, I was glad I got home safely in one piece, you know. So
Yeah, that's the only downside to the wintertime convention setup.
mm-hmm. Yeah, but
Sometimes the
overall,
weather is like,
yeah. Oh, agreed. It's those rare that we actually ran into that. You know.
maybe 3 or 4 times out of like 14 years
Mm-hmm.
we've had bad weather.
Yeah.
And I think I remember all of them because of having to drive through it to get to the event.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So that one was the last one we had at the long time venue of the Pakistania Fire Hall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, the funny thing is, where did I see those? I forget if I saw it on Facebook or I saw it on one in my photos app on my iPhone. I forget which. Or no, it would have been photos app on my iPad. One of those two. I forget which. But it was one of the early gamers. I don't remember it's winter or summer, but it was one of the larger ones where we actually had someone come out that was remember the guy who I think drove down from like New York and sold like his books. He was an author.
Oh yes,
that was
yeah. He passed away a few years.
Yeah, I've
Yes,
yeah, those pictures
Still on my friend's
of that one like I think it was the first one.
was
Yeah.
that at the Moose Moose Lodge up in Marysville.
Hmm. I think.
Thing.
I think so. It was one of
He
the.
was with us for quite a few events.
Hmm. Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, he basically penciled us in because we were kind of like in between different events that he was driving to as well.
Hmm.
We were kind of convenient with the schedule
Hmm.
quite a bit. Oh, good Lord, I can't think of the man's name off the top of my head.
I
He's
can't.
like a self-published author. He did.
Yes.
His main thing was like he would run a Call of Cthulhu game
Hmm.
along with that. Let's see. I keep thinking CJ, but that's different author on my friends list.
Yeah. I can't remember the guy's name. Yeah, I remember buying.
I have his face. He actually secured the rights to use Kolchak the Night Stalker as a character.
Oh
Remember that
wow.
show from the 70s?
No, I don't remember that show from the
And
seventies.
he integrated that with what the heck, the Call of Cthulhu, the Lovecraft universe.
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, that's so many memories from so long ago. I remember sitting there listening to him, then talk to. He had some of his fans were part of were people that had come to our event prior to him coming out to it too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Sure, his name's gonna come to me in a minute,
Yeah.
or it'll come to me like 5 after we're done talking. Weird how that works.
Yeah. Agreed.
But yeah, we had some good common ground. He was a poker player too,
Hmm.
among other things.
Which was?
But yeah, we have gamers of winners going to be. Oh, are you going to be able to make it Sunday? I forgot to ask you before we started.
I have to double
For
check.
the Harrisburg game day.
Right.
Okay. It runs from noon to 8.
Hmm.
You don't have to be there the entire 8 hours necessarily.
Yeah, I don't. I definitely could not be there for the whole 8 hours.
But maybe we could get some demos in.
Hmm.
I said they get like 100 to 150 people.
Wow.
Which is interesting considering that they're doing it on Labor Day weekend.
Agreed.
CJ Henderson, that was the guy's name. I was right. It was CJ.
Uh huh.
It's just different CJ somewhere. CJ Henderson, that was. And it's like, yeah, I remember when he passed away, like maybe 5, 6 years ago. It's been a while.
Wow.
Isn't it?
Oh, okay, that's what
To
that.
this date, I think runs.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the old ones from like Grantville, including one where remember the guy who actually did some singing. Do I have?
Yes. Like celebrity night here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just did we did a short video shoot a few weeks back.
Hmm.
I haven't put any of the footage out. I'm not sure if I'm going to, but the purpose of that shot was was just for me to get a little editing experience, so I can start looking at maybe doing some project in the near future.
Right. Right.
I mean, the brown shirt guy, the pirate, the guy that did the Firefly cosplay.
Right.
Is that who you mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right.
Because he did that out of Grantville. He also did it at Paxtonia. Oh, goodness. Like, yeah. So you're going through, are you sharing any of those photos?
Not at the moment. I'm
Like
just,
with our,
I was looking for the ones that I saw, I don't see them at the moment, so I might just stop looking and just give up. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the pictures of my house that they when they ripped it apart. Uh, I had a fire, so yeah.
Nathan Maker, that was his name. Nathan, yeah. So, because that's something that we didn't really have much of in the past. I mean, we had a little bit of cosplay, but wasn't really a big part of the event.
Oh, agreed.
Most of the people came there and they got into their gaming, and that's pretty much that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, agreed. Yeah. Every once in a while, you have someone who decide to dress up and do a little bit of cosplay.
Yeah. Well, the few times I said, hey, let's try and have like a contest, there's maybe 3 or 4 people
Mm-hmm.
that would show up, something like that.
Yeah, most of our yep, most of the contests were baking contests.
Well, dessert contest, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even that, it's just there wasn't the interest in that part of it after quite some time.
Right. Oh, agreed.
But I mean, the main thing at the Gamers Winter and Gamers of Summer is really the game.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Agreed. 100% there.
Speaking of which, I can get my shameless plug out of the way early if you want me to.
Oh, by all means.
Yeah, we still have we're still looking for a venue. Basically, we got a few more bucks added to it, and I'd say it's looking up a little bit. We could always use more bucks thrown towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing is, if you're one of our regular attendees and you want to throw money at it, it is counting towards any attendance. And if you want to throw a little extra to help make sure that we can find a new space, that's awesome. But basically, the space we were using for the last several, maybe 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. It's been a while. We were there for a long time.
Oh yeah.
They decided to no longer rent to outside agencies, and they were going to repurpose their space to another purpose, like into a combination gym and training room instead of like public rental space, the firehouse.
Yeah.
Which, on a fiscal basis, makes no sense whatsoever because it's a cash cow for them. But that's what they decided to do, and we just have to find a new place. The downside of all that is most of the places that we've been to in the past have gone way up in price. It just makes it a bit challenging.
Agreed.
I mean, on Sunday we're going to be at the Whitaker Center with Harrisburg game day people, and I'm not sure that would be a good venue for us to ask about, but it's attached to, if I remember correctly, it's attached to Strawberry Square. Just like a big little hidden away mall kind of thing / big food court that really is it's a central place for a lot of the state workers in Harrisburg.
Right.
Which is also attached to the Harrisburg Hilton, which does have meeting rooms, but the last time I looked at them years ago, they were kind of pricey.
Understood.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was thinking about maybe wandering over there and talking to them.
Understood.
But yeah, that's kind of it. If we get the right amount of money where we could do something like a storefront rental for 30 days or 3 months, I would be more than happy to throw the event as a large 3-day thing and then a bunch of other separate like mini events in between and use that for other stuff.
Understood.
That would be awesome. I mean, I wouldn't mind if a bunch of F&E guys decided they wanted to have a week of massive F&E play.
Mm-hmm.
That would be awesome.
Oh, agreed.
That's just me.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, understood. And most of the venues that we've had is actually we've been able to leave our stuff there, except for I think the Moose Lodge, for the most part, and not people not bothering it, and that'd be great for F&E.
Yeah. Closest we had to anybody bothering our stuff was one time out in Grantville. Remember when we had one of the local shops that runs Magic the Gathering stuff did their opening night, or their I guess some kind of release night.
Mm-hmm.
They did that on our event, and because of the extra merchandise and stuff that they were bringing in, I stayed overnight in the room just to watch it, and hotel staff, without asking me, opened the door to let somebody in to get their bag. Otherwise, that's literally the closest we've had to any kind of incident like that. But yeah, every place we've been able to leave our stuff in there, leave it set up.
Mm-hmm.
Which a tremendously huge, nice thing. And if we did a storefront type of setup, that would be on steroids, because then pretty much the only person coming in is going to be, staff like me,
Mm-hmm.
and our, attendees the next day. So, yeah. And that's a huge thing when you're talking about guys want to run a Twilight Imperium game. They can come in and set it up the night before and have it ready to go at 10 o'clock the next morning for their 8 to 10 hours of game time.
Damn.
If you really want to get nostalgic about it, if any of our board gamers, any grognards who love war games, wanted to come in and run the old terrible Swift Sword system, to run the Battle of Gettysburg, that's a regimental level game that could be played. If you have it down pat, you're playing it in real time.
Right.
And it can take literally all 3 days to run the 3 days of Gettysburg, for instance.
Wow.
But, we could do events like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you want to come in and run a captain's tournament? Yes, we could do that. We have the space and the time. You want to come in and run a campaign where, maybe you use a small F&E section to generate scenarios, like we talked about as a possibility before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can leave that stuff set up and over 3 days. And if we get a storefront space, that might be something that we could set up and do over the course of a weekend or two.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I got. I'm just kind of rambling at this point.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I was just thinking about the first one that you did. At least the first one I came to. And I remember I had just got my iPhone. And I was trying to get to the place. And unfortunately, this was before, the phones had GPS built into them. So I had directions. But the directions were say, turn right on this street, turn left on this street, and so forth. And I still remember missing the street because the street sign was missing. I was looking at the map and went, that was the road. So
Did I have to talk to you in on that one, I think? That's to talk directions.
I don't remember.
That was Lakeside Lutheran Church.
Oh.
That was the very first one we did, I think.
Okay. That maybe not been the first one. Because I could have sworn... I thought it was...
You think maybe the Creekside Air Company?
Yes. I think that was the one. Because it was a fire company. That I remember. It wasn't the one that was actually in Harrisburg. where I had to actually
Yeah, it was
go through Harrisburg to get to the church.
Yeah, it was over in like the Camp Hill area
Right.
on the West Shore.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, because I remember we did Lakeside Lutheran in Harrisburg, then we went over to the West Shore for that one at that firehouse, and then I think our next one after that may have been the Pembroke Community Center before we moved into the Moose Lodge for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And once we got in, like, that, and that's kind of an interesting thing. Once we've gotten into some of the places, it's been like, as long as they weren't like horribly pricing us out, we were there for years.
Yeah, yeah. I still remember the one in Maryville where they got got teed off because
Well, yeah, they pissed our people for on different levels.
Right. Well, they expected us to purchase, buy a lot more stuff, food at the actual Moose Lodge.
Yeah, but they were very inconsistent with their quality too.
Right. So how can you expect us to want to buy your food if it's inconsistent?
Yeah. Well, there was that, and then there was the weekend of like Arctic time, and they froze us.
Oh yeah.
And
oh
came back and
jeez.
said, "Oh yeah, the thing, the heater ran out of oil or something like that, and this one vent was turned on, and that's why it was running all the time." And
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, other than those two little issues.
Oh, agreed. For the most part, we haven't really had that much issues with any of the venues that we've gotten over the years. At least.
Yeah, well,
that would affect the convention.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that annoyed people the most was no outside food or drink at the Moose Lodge.
Right.
And other than that, it's been a pretty smooth sailing thing.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
You don't believe the number that tried to get like somebody to come in and do catering. So, but then again, we're a small event, and until people come in and actually see what we're doing, a lot of people just don't kind of get it.
Right.
And that's kind of the thing when I've approached a lot of these places. Most of them just don't get it. It's kind of rare that they do. Wyndham Gardens got it. We were there for several years before they renovated their space.
Right.
That's kind of like our big thing. It's like if they went back to having a ballroom, I'd go there in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, they would probably have tripled their prices by now.
Of course. Jeez, these days, it's nuts. I was just announcing, as part of the news portion, that the 1-inch counters for the megahex of H1 module.
Oh, that post. I saw Gene posted about that.
Yeah, they tripled the cost, and it's like, this is nuts. And they said, okay, that's it. They were able to absorb the cost last year, but this year's like, no, they can't. So they said, okay, that's it.
But they're still publishing.
Yeah. Oh, they're still selling it. It's just they're not selling it out of game stores anymore because they can't. Because the game stores are going to want a certain cut, which is their right to. So the only way to do that would actually be increase the cost. Increase the sale price. That'd be the only way.
Yeah.
So instead of raising the price, they decided to basically say, okay, they're just going to have to buy them directly from us. I'm assuming that they don't sell that many to the game stores as it stands.
Which is not too horrible of a thing in some respects.
Agreed.
But it does hurts the game stores a bit.
Oh, agreed. And
one more thing.
And one more thing that we can't buy from them I'm sure everyone who wants game stores to survive will do their best to support their local game store, whether that means buying, just buying paints, because some paints because you need to paint your miniatures, even if you don't do Warhammer 2K or 4K, whatever. Or buy cards or buy dice or whatever it takes, just a little something to keep them going. So, we all want to support our local game stores because we want them to survive. Because we know us, us gamers as an overall demographic are heck a lot smaller than most of the people out there. But as I've said multiple times on this podcast, I'm very happy and very encouraged by my daughter, because my daughter likes to play games and likes to play games with her friends. So and this is actually, when she was going to college, when she would get together with her college buddies, and they would play these different games, face to face. These days most of her friends are online, so they play online games because that's all they can do when it comes to sharing, playing games together. But she's the kind of person that really gives me hope that the game industry will continue on.
I think it will. It's very much it's a social thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we're going through some significant changes in how we can do stuff. I mean, I think we're on the cusp of a huge change right now in how things are done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just going to be a matter of time before somebody comes out, if they haven't already done it. I could be totally, off the mark here, but I think it's just a matter of time before somebody comes out and says, okay, here's the package, here's not just the PDF file of rules, here's
Right.
the printer package, and you just print your own game out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I well the
But
question.
when it comes right to it, events like Gamers of Summer, Gamers of Winter, the Harrisburg Board Game Day, they fill a niche where people can get face-to-face time with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I saw that was really interesting, as a change in how game shops worked over the decades. Was a lot of the ones that survived for the longest time, they shifted from being a traditional brick and mortar store with, here's our stuff on the shelf, you can buy it or not, have a nice day, to, here's our stuff on the shelf, here's our table space where you can sit down and play a game here for 3 or 4 hours tonight.
Mm-hmm.
After work with your friends. And that game place on the West Shore was a really good example of that. They supported us for years, and Charlie only went out of business because of a whole bunch of things that all hit at one time, not because of his business model. His business model was sound,
Right.
and it was, he had 5 or 6 tables any given night. People coming in paying a few bucks for the tables. They'd buy sodas, snacks, whatever, and he turned it into a little social meeting place.
Mm-hmm.
To do these things. And prior to that, because the prior owner was doing that in a smaller space with fewer tables before he sold the business to Charlie. And he had adapted into doing that because it helped him generate sales and so on. And the need and ability that people have of wanting to just get out of the frickin' house, apartment, and barracks, whatever, and go meet other people and do stuff. It really does override I think it's going to override a lot of the online connectivity. Because the online connectivity is here to stay. But
agreed.
it's kind of a poor substitute for actually being with other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's a court thing, in which case I'm okay with the Zoom meeting.
You've been in enough courts.
Well, yes, I was. Yes, Your Honor, I honestly was speeding or whatever. Thank you. Have a nice day. The fuss no mas.
Understood. Gary, you've been quiet.
Well, I'm just waiting until you guys are finished your conversation. But I was actually on the BBS. There was somebody who just recently posted a question about fast cruisers, and he was basically just trying to suggest like a pound for pound, or I suppose BPV for BPV, but they should put it in another way.
Yeah.
Whether it's an SFU or Fed and Empire or so forth, or FedCom as well, or Call to Arms too. How would you rate the various fast ships in terms of the niches that they fill and the roles that they can take on? And even, like, I guess because that varies depending on the game system you're in. But, yeah, I do think that, because they're not quite as all-around dangerous as X ships, and, of course, they're not quite as balanced as non-X, non-fast ships. But in some game systems, you get the sense of what they can do more than others. Like in F&E, for example, they have an actual difference in terms of how they move operationally on the board compared to other types of units. So whether it's to use them as fast rate or to use them as fast responders or to do something else with them entirely, I was just wondering if that might be an interesting topic to bore over.
Yes and no. I think yes. The big issue obviously is that I'm not familiar with all of the fast cruisers, so it's hard for me to compare them with each other. But the whole concept of the fast cruiser, yeah, it was, I say a few possible missions for it. One is obviously a fast responder, as you pointed out. Also, a way of doing intel. Use a fast cruiser to quickly penetrate, enemy lines, do some quick looking around, and then get the heck out of Dodge. Versus the whole sneak approach, where you try to get past the border, and then investigate and then come back out, basically slowly, so you just look like, every day, all the other rest of the traffic that's around the border,
Well, right now there's about in the Alpha Octans, there's about three different classes of fast ship that are fairly well covered, and then there's one or two that have only been given previews so far. Like the main well-known ones are, of course, the fast heavy cruisers, and there's also more recently the war cruisers.
Right.
So most empires have at least one of each. The Federation actually have a few different ones because they have the new fast cruiser, the Manta Ray, and they also have a couple of, I think it's a carrier variant of their fast cruiser as well. And the main rule of thumb is that for most empires, if the original ship has 4 heavy weapons like photon torpedoes or disruptors,
right,
then the fast cruiser will turn 2 of those into phaser ones. So it has typically the same amount of weapon boxes, but it lacks the same heavy hitting punch because, and also they tend to have maybe 36 warp instead of 30 warp, so not as much as an X cruiser,
right,
but significantly more than your average regular ship, I should say. And Yeah. So, and of course, in terms of the shape-based miniatures, the like the Federation ones have those big pointy spade saucers.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you've got particularly the mongoose style Romulans look really great because the mongoose style, like Firehawk and Sparrowhawk, have a very distinct style, like where the lower engines are kind of out compared to being kind of stuck underneath with the classic Sparrowhawk and Firehawk.
Right.
And so on the regular ones, the wings are swept forward. And so with the fast versions, they sweep the wings back and then they extend the prow to give it more of a kind of a sleek and dynamic look. You can actually see them on Shapeways if you want to check them out. But then on the other hand, actually speaking of the plasma ones, they tend to, I think they get a slightly better deal because, like for example, the standard Firehawk has 2 plasma S and 2 plasma F, and the fast version keeps the 2 plasma S, and it only turns the 2 plasma F into phaser ones. So you're actually getting more like 2/3 of the heavy weapon firepower
That's
instead
true.
of half.
That's
And
true.
because it's got the plucking device, it's a much better rating ship compared to
Yeah, but
other empires.
but at the same time, Gary, the big issue with plasma ships is the 3 turns of army. And the benefit of having 4 torpedoes is that you can, especially with pseudos, you can have it so that you can launch like an F with an S that's a pseudo, and the person is going to run. But also, if you want to, you have the ability to hold back the Fs. For at the very least, a defensive weapons. So that if they, if you're trying to reload the S's, the Fs are there as protection because if you're running away and your opponent is coming in on you, you can launch the Fs, assuming that they're in arc. I understand that issue. The Fs and have it so that you can at least slow them down, or possibly cause them to turn off. That's the benefit of having the 4 compared to, say, a photon based ship. Like the Feds, their fast cruiser where they have not changed. The only thing that they changed obviously is going to be the firepower, the amount of damage they can actually do. That's true, but at the same time, they have a greater. They still have the ability because most of the time when you're charging your photons, you're charging them. Every other turn, they're ready. Obviously there is the whole issue with power. Big surprise. And so if, in some cases they might not charge. Might have offset them a little bit to save on power. But that's always an option. But at the very least, you can charge the photons and have them at least ready to fire every 2 turns. Versus, if you have 2 S's and no F's, then it makes things even more difficult because you only can have enough firepower to hold back your opponent, or hold back your opponent is every 3 turns, or because there's going to be 1 turn that you're most probably not going to be able to have any plasma available. Though, yes, in theory, if you want to, you can do a fast load F, but that there goes your S torpedo down the tubes if you use a fast load F. That's one thing I don't know about, which is the battery situation when it comes to fast cruisers either. So whether they have additional batteries. Yes.
Well, you see, part of the thing as well is what mission are you sending the fast ship on? Because if you've got the Romulan fast cruiser, you're not necessarily sitting around waiting for a duel. You're intercepting someone else's raider, either to defeat it or to hold it up in place long enough so that reinforcements come to the scene, or you're maybe attacking a convoy, or you're raiding the planet's surface and something. So, is those 2 S-torps that you've got on there, are you using them to bombard a planetary surface, or are you using them to try and assassinate a key target ship or something? And either way, are you sticking around long enough so that you have to cloak for 3 turns. And although I guess your ship would be a bit faster while you're under cloak, so there'd be a little bit of a difference there in terms of where you're distributing your power. So you wouldn't necessarily approach the battle the same way that you would with a standard Firehawk.
Oh, agreed. And the thing is, when it comes to the Firehawk and ramen ships in general, you don't always want to use your cloaking because always the issue with cloaking is that you give up the initiative, because when you're cloaking, you got to slow down because cloaking devices are not cheap when it comes to power. So and normally you want to cloak as a defensive measure. You're not able to get the distance that you want to have, but even as a defensive measure, okay, you basically slow down. So the person's going to have the ability to overrun you. Make it harder for them to hit you. Yeah, that's the whole idea of a cloak. But with that, the difficult part, of course, is going to be uncloaking. That's who said that? Or was that in the tactics manual? I think it might have been the tactics manual. That you need to, when you're about to cloak, you need to know what is your plan for uncloaking? What is your plan to get yourself out of the situation without getting yourself killed? Because remember that there's, it takes like 5 impulses to uncloak a Romulan ship. And if you have the enemy ship really close, they can beat the snot out of you before you even have a chance to fire. Because it's not like you don't have active fire control. You're blind. You can't even launch on passive fire control. So.
But so and then of course the two of the other types of fast ships there would be light dreadnoughts. Now those tend to be a little bit more generous weapon-wise. So,
right.
Like for example, with the Federation one, the Splendid Cats, they have a move cost of 1.25 in both Fed Commander and SFE, and they basically usually have 5 photons instead of 6, which is still not bad. I mean, it can do quite a powerful. You can score a powerful hit with that. So it's generally, for their size, they can be quite dangerous. But of course, it's worth remembering that the Saurian light dreadnought is not an actual light dreadnought. It's just a big command ship with 3 guns.
Right.
So it shouldn't get to play with the other quote unquote light dreadnoughts in terms of being fast raiders. So and then similarly, there's a preview, because I think they want to try to save the full set for like a future R module, R13 maybe. But there are light battleships. So there's a couple of ones that have been previewed in different captain's log issues. So for example, there's actually 2 different types of ISC light battleship, and 2 of them have, I want to say, 4 PPDs. One of them has 4 PPDs and a couple of plasma S's, and then the other one has only the 2 central PPDs, and the other PPDs are swapped for plasma S's. Because the idea is that one of them is basically if you're actually using it as a big light raider, a big fast raider rather.
Right.
And the other one is basically if you're using it to lead a fast echelon. Like say if you've got enough fast ships to basically turn it into a squadron in and of itself, then you're basically, if you're sending the entire squadron to, like during the pacification, for example, then you'd basically use the light battleship as like a squadron flagship, basically. So Captain Log 50, I think, came with the torpedo variant. And then the original one was in a supplemental file a few issues before. I forget which one. But yeah, so but I think some of the more obvious ones, like the Federation light battleship, I think we're probably not going to see that until the whichever module R13 or whatever that they're putting. And of course, there's a couple of odd cases. Like for example, there is a fast variant of the Federation destroyer, the USS Two Moons, and it basically is just has two photons and a single one of the engines that you've got two of on the regular fast cruiser. But it was kind of like a historical anomaly, so it doesn't really warrant a full range of fast destroyers because, generally speaking, they're too small a class. And also because the Fed destroyer is kind of a weird case in the first place because of how many photons it would ordinarily have. So most destroyers don't have that many heavy weapons to lose to justify the fast status. So like a light cruiser or war cruiser is like the smallest thing you can get away with and classify, if that makes sense.
Understood. Yeah. Actually, that's one thing. Maybe you know, Gary, because I don't. But it's a question that pops in my head, which is the light dreadnoughts. Was it actually a historical ship, or was it just one of those things that they thought about, but they never actually put into production? Do you know?
Oh, they tend to be real. Like a couple of empires only built one. I think the Romulans only built one Shrike. But the Feds built a few different standard cats, and I think at least one of them survived the General War. And so one of the others was it basically went on a kind of like a you're not coming back mission to try to attack a key Klingon supply base during the early part of the General War, just to kind of like stop the Klingons from moving too far into Federation space.
Right.
And others have had other kind of fates or whatever. But the IFC had a few. They used them during the classification. But theirs were historically relatively late to be built because there's a number of different classes that they historically only really got around to building in the run-up to the pacification because they didn't really need to build them during the General War proper.
Mm-hmm.
Although I suppose if you're playing, a lot of those ships still have, like, you know how sometimes on an FSD you'll see the kind of like the little kind of symbol. It's like two dashes and a line going through them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that refers to the earliest the ship could be built. So, say for example, if you're playing in one of the Parabian timelines, the Module C6, then the IFC wouldn't have an excuse to hold off then. So in those timelines, you'd probably see the light dreadnoughts a lot quicker because they're building them to fight Parabian light dreadnoughts and Romulan ships as well. So they can't really hold back the way that they did historically.
Understood.
But actually, one of the things I was thinking about was because the original poster was asking like which was the best, I guess, pound for pound or BPV wise. But I was actually thinking that if you're thinking in terms of using the fast ship to go on raids, then you might be thinking, okay, so what are the capabilities that the ship should have in order to do that?
Right.
And for that, I actually think the Parabian one has an advantage, the one from Module C6, because it can land on planets. And it still has the 20 boarding parties that the standard Parabian heavy cruiser has. So if your goal is to get to a corner ISC colony, land troops, cause trouble, and then skedaddle, then you can do that to a way that a lot of other empires would have to use their transporters and their shuttles to get down to the surface. So you've got a bit more flexibility in terms of what you do when you arrive at the place that you're raiding. And also, I think we were talking with Barry before about the quantum wave torpedo. That weapon requires warp power to overload. And most Parabian ships don't have auxiliary warp reactors, so
right.
You have to pay for that warp power from the warp engines. So you're slowing your ship more. But when you have a fast cruiser, you actually have one thing that's a relative novelty for Parabian ships, and that's
right.
discretionary warp.
Right.
So you've got 36 warp you can use for that warp to overload your quantums, and then everything else goes to all the other systems that you're using on your ship. So you've got a higher battle speed and you're able to hold on to a stronger punch while you're running, if that makes sense. And also because you can fire them every turn, so you don't have to worry the same way that you would with like a Romulan, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And their light dreadnought has 5 quantum wave torpedoes, the same way that like a Fed ship has 5 photons. So that's another ship that, proportionally speaking, you're not losing much based on the regular Praetorian dreadnought, and you've got a lot more flexibility in terms of the battle speed that you're keeping while considering overloads. So that's another ship that's and also it's not that expensive because the Praetorian ships are relatively cheap BV wise because they don't get much in the way of refits. So if you're thinking about, like, it might not be the most powerful ship of its type, but in terms of the price you're paying for it, are you getting what you pay for, if that makes sense?
Right. Well, yeah. Yeah, that's true. He doesn't. The poster that says pound for pound doesn't explicitly mention, BPV or anything like that. But I think I tend to agree with your statement, basically, that it's how much firepower per BPV are you getting?
Actually, do you still have the PDF for the Module C6 SSD book on your computer?
I'll check.
Because if you do, you could also check out the Carnarvon fast cruiser, because that's another ship that has heavy weapons that require warp power to overload. And that's another empire that doesn't get AWRs ordinarily. So you could run your disruptor cannons hot every second turn, and you'd still have a fair bit of flexibility in terms of how you're firing them.
Oh, which ship? Okay, I brought it up. On which ship am I looking for?
So I guess you could do a comparison. There's the Praevians have both actually the Praevians have 3, both empires I should say, have 3 fast ships in Module C6. They each have a light dreadnought, they have a fast cruiser, and they have a fast war cruiser.
Okay, give me a sec. Strike cruiser, fast cruiser, there it is. Okay. Okay, Okay, and this is the Carnarvons. Trying to find. There it is. Okay.
The only thing about the Carnarvon one is that it can't land on planets, and it doesn't have as many boarding parties. So it's probably not quite as flexible as a raider compared to the Praetorian one. But it might be a better unit in terms of trying to assassinate a particular target ship or something.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to try to intercept a convoy or raid a mobile base or something.
Yeah, I got the 2 bolts, 2 hill nippers, and 2 disruptor cannons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 18 plus 18 is 36 plus 3 is 39. Any other power other than batteries? 39, 43 total power. That's a good bit of power. Good. Okay, yeah, the disruptor cannons are like the regular disruptors when it comes to charging them.
They're 2-turn arming weapons, but they do, on average, the standard shot is twice as powerful as a regular disruptor bolt, but the overload shot is only 50% as powerful again.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But if you once, but they actually have the same disruptive effect against enjoyment and PA panels that standard disruptor bolts have.
And you have to remind me of that.
Yes, I do.
This tells me it was better that they died like the dogs they are.
Aw. Throw 'em a bone.
Oh. Okay, where is it? Where is it? I'm looking for the Pontoon Fast Cruiser. Uh-oh. What is it, you little numbnut? Yes, you. I got my kitten.
Now, the only thing is that the Carnarvon Light Dreadnought, it doesn't have 5 disruptor cannons because of the way the engineering is on the ship. It only has 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it does have other weapons to try to make up for it, though. So I guess you'd have to be a little bit more careful in terms of how you line up your shots. Like if you want to have like one big blow rather than taking your time. But then if you're on a fast ship, you're probably not going to take your time too long because I think in the universe the engines wear out more quickly, so they're more of a hassle in terms of keeping in service.
Right, right. Let's look at the. Because this is what? No. Wow, 1. Oh, okay, I forgot about the center warp. 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's 24 between those two. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So another 12. So it's total 36. 37, 38. 38 plus 6 is 44. Wow. For how small of a ship that the Paravian fast cruiser is, because I'm looking at the number of boxes, and it's like, this just looks so small. Because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You got 12 whole boxes complete, and that's it. Of course, you got the 5 shuttle.
What?
2 transporters. You got a good number of phasers. You got 8 phasers, phaser 1s that is, 4 phaser 3s, and you got the 2 quantum wave torpedoes. Boarding party's got 20 of them. It's not bad there.
See, one of the main reasons why trading ships are smaller than average is because they need to retain the ability to learn all times. So I think that's one of the reasons why there's certain kind of engineering compromises that are involved. Like, for example, if you look at some of the, in Prime Directive, there's some of the, what do you call them, deck plans they've revealed.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a handful of the deck plans for ships that can land. And so they need to actually find space in the hull for the landing plans.
Right.
So, and also, I guess you have to design the hull in such a way that it can actually fly through an atmosphere, without being too blocky a ship or whatever. And then it's getting back out again. So, for those reasons, that's why even though if you look on shapeways, the Paravian cruisers have quite a wide wingspan. I think the overall volume is a bit lower compared to what you have on the equivalent Gorn ship. Because Gorns, they don't design their cruisers they design their cruisers to stay in open space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but Gorn cruisers are overall seem to be larger than most. Okay. Crap. What did he do? What did he do?
Overall point value with the IFC fast
Mind
cruiser
me.
is probably the most expensive one because
Some,
it gets all the
some of you guys are still
bells and
there?
whistles that you usually see on an IFC ship.
There.
Yeah, still here.
Make sure things still going. Things still going. Okay. Can you hear me, guys?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Gary? Doug?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Crapola. Whatever. I've got to end it here. So we'll just end it here because I said I'm not gonna futz with it. I'll work on it after the show's ended. Yeah, I know. It's just the way I have things all routed and so forth on my machine. Okay, well, I think I'll end it. Just stop this whole craziness. Oh, okay.
Interesting.
We'll do Doug. So, unfortunately, I can't hear you guys, and it's gonna. I don't know what I'm gonna do about the recording because if it's just my headphones, I'm not sure what you guys are saying, and I'm probably talking over you, so it makes no sense. I might just clip the whole thing out. So, anyhow, we had a nice little discussion about the good old days of okay, let me do this. This like this. Let's go like this. Go like this. Okay, so don't have to worry about that anymore. So and I talk about the good old days of gamers. That fun discussing fast cruisers and of course the lovely Pravians and the Carnivons and their beautiful fast cruisers. So with that, before I send off, there will be no podcast next week. I'm going to be out of town, so I won't be able to do the podcast. So that's just a warning ahead of time. So guys who are in the chat room, take the night off. So with that, I am Paul France, and I bid you a good night.